So I'm not sure if the protectors are doing some kind of sabotage here in order to maybe to check us. Lela said, the second parameters of patient. So we practice that today. So thank you for coming tonight. I think that I saw some of you in the child empowerment and in the child teachings that Drupala has been given. It was a very challenging time because it was, Drupala was teaching and Lamalina was teaching. And I thought about that, that's always the case when you have more than one teacher. You always in some kind of choose position if there is some kind of overlapping. So what are you doing in these occasions? Did it ever happen to you? Do you know what you do? Well, I can tell you that I always goes with my heart. So it's not about who I like better, who is my root teacher or my heart teacher, or there is some kind of hierarchy, this one is better than this one. I always goes with the heart because I know for sure that whatever teachings that I will choose will be something that I needed at that moment. So in the teaching that I will be listening to or will be participating, if it's a practice, I will always receive an answer to some kind of question or dilemma or something that I need at that time. So I decided to go with my heart. And at that time, when there was some kind of overlapping. And it was very interesting because you know what my heart told me? None. So here come the guilt. Oh my God, what should I do? If it's none, I'm not going to be in this one or in this one. I'm going to be a bad student. What will happen to me? This is not kind of respecting the teachers that I have. And then I thought about that and I said it, I want to share it with you because I think we all have this issue. This in psychology terms, it's called overwhelming, but also it's not just overwhelming. It's something that has to do with I don't know what's the word for that. Overflooding. You're overflowed with dharma. Sometimes it happens, and what happens to us when we feel like we are overloaded or we're overwhelmed or we overload, we're floated of something, not only dharma. It can happen in dharma, but also in other occasions differently. So what happens? It's that we always do the wrong thing. We're trying to make a special effort. And you remember, all the teachers always say, in order for the Dharma to get in, you have to relax. So when you're overwhelmed, or you're overfloated, or you're in some kind of stress, you might be in the class, meaning sitting there, but nothing will get in, especially not the answer that you were looking for. And I was thinking, I was just, I did some meditation about the answer because the answer, as I told you, was none of them. And I said, this is an amazing teachings for me. So the teachings is not always in the words of the teachers. Sometimes it's the other way around. Like, for example, what do I do? What do I need to do now in order to relax? Okay, not to push too hard, because when we push hard, we might break something. That's what you go when you get into a room and everything is cluttered. You might go start moving around, and then what happens? It's something will be destroyed or will be broken. So I advise you, when you do have an overlap, go with the question, what should I do now? What is right for me now? Not, don't go with the rational, go with the heart, okay? And then when the answer comes and surprise you, it's always the best answer. And I had to go to bed very early that day because I was exhausted, okay? So then when I woke up in the morning, I said, wow, I'm so blessed because all my teachers are giving me the opportunity to participate in their class in a different time. Okay? I didn't wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning in order to go to Drupal class. I could watch it in the morning. But I wasn't, this kind of solution was not at that moment part of what I was deciding. So go with your heart. That's the best advice I can give you. And as a tantrika, actually, there is another say that we're saying about, everything, about every circumstances, but I'm talking specific now about those circumstances that you have to choose. There is an overlap and you want to choose between two teachings that you want. The say with a tantrika that's, everything is divine, not pure, divine. What does it mean everything is divine? It means that it's perfect. When we are encountering some kind of circumstances that we feel that something wrong here, or it doesn't go according to my plan, or that somebody was, I don't know, insulting me, or somebody was saying something, or I did something wrong, or somebody did wrong to me, I don't know, all kind of situations, okay? Everything is divine. The problem is that we don't see the divine part. We always judge the circumstances as something that is so mundane, so local, mental, divine by mental affliction. I mean, it's not. What does it mean? It's divine. Let's talk about the circumstances that I had to choose between the two teachings that I wanted to be at the same time. And as I told you, the answer was none. So what is divine here? You want to try to start to train your mind to see every circumstances as a divine solution to something, even that you don't know that. Well, there is always, when I'm talking about the divine, it might be not so clear. So there is always the example that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is giving about the divine plan of the karma that we are not so sure about it. We started that when we spoke about the history of Tantra. And as you know, the invasion of the Chinese to Tibet was started at 1950 and was completed, we'll say, 1962, 1963, until now. So when people came to His Holiness and asking him, why don't you do anything that has to do with coming back to Tibet? Many countries were willing to help the Tibetan to come back to their country, maybe even open a war against China and everything. And he said, no, everything is the divine plane, which means everything is according to the karma. And he specifically was saying that, everybody thinks that Tibet was, everybody was so nice to each other, but there were clowns there and many families that were fighting one against another in order to capture their land or others' land. And as he said, we are getting in karma exactly what we planted. And then he said, when you look now, I think it was, when he spoke about it, I think it was 1990 maybe. So it's about 20 years after the invasion, right? So he said, but you look back now, the Buddhism was very, very closed, capture, secret in Tibet. Tibet was very close to foreigners. So what happened now to Buddhism? I'm talking about 1990, I think, around something like that he was talking about. It's all over the world. We have millions of people who are not Tibetan, or not Tibetan, not Asian, who are practicing practicing Buddhism. So what is the divine plan here? I mean, should we have the invasion of the Chinese in order for Buddhism to spread around the world and for us to be here, people here from all over the world? We can't see the consequences and how karma works. You have to be a Buddha in order to see that. But I think this is an example for the divine plan, for the divine way of he was looking at that. He was trying to make a point for us to look always from a different angle on the circumstances that we have. We don't always have the answer. Why this is happening? Because we are so analytical Westerners, so we always want to know why and how. Okay, we don't always know how, why and how. But try to see the divine plan. Because if it's true that in Tantra we are saying that, everything we're seeing is the mandala of the deity, everything that we hear is the mantra of the deity and the mandala of the deity. So how can it happen that something that comes wrong, what we call wrong, is wrong? I just heard Lamalina said, yeah, I was listening to the teaching, and I was very fresh when I was listening to the teachings, and I was so happy that the teaching was so amazing, and I was so happy that I could capture everything she said in a relaxed mode and not in a very stressful one. And she said something very interesting, because she said something about she usually speaks about the war around the world, right? Because we don't like wars, because people are getting killed and people are getting wounded, and it creates a lot of suffering to be part of the world or to be in the world. But Lamalina always says that, and I will just translate a little bit what she said about the divine plan. That's not the term she used, but the divine plan is that Gaia, as you know, the goddess of earth, she needs to create some kind of an immune system in order to reduce the population in the world. When you hear that, you don't like that. I don't like to hear that. Because when people are saying that, reducing the population in the world, I always think about lives. But when you come to think about it, it's always been like that. It's ups and downs in the world, in the history of countries and religions and everything that bursts and then shrinks, bursts, open up and shrinks, open up and shrinks. What does it mean to look at a war from a perspective of a divine plan? It's even contradict, the words, war and divine plan. It doesn't sound so good, right? But again, we don't know, because maybe those of us that have been participated in the board of teachings that Lamalina gave, or maybe other teacher you were participating, and you practice that, and now you in a situation that you might die in a war, maybe for you this is an opportunity to be able to open the door in the first bardo, okay, in the first bardo, and whoop, getting enlightened. Who knows? So don't underestimate your intuition. That's what we are trying to develop actually in Tantra. We are trying to develop the intuition because everything is in our subconsciousness. Everything. Our history, our previous life, actually, even our future lives is in our subconscious. You can call it subconscious. In some of the traditions in the Buddhism, we called it kunshi. I don't know if you heard the term. Kunshi is a place where the karma is being stored. It's some of the lineages calls it in Tibetan kunshi. It's where the karma is being stored. In some of the leveling, it's some people saying that it's the karma has been stored in our channels. In some of them, it's in our stream, consciousness stream, which is mainly our subconsciousness. Wherever the karma is being stored, we are unable to see and predict all the karma that we have. There is an amazing teaching about karma, how karma works. It's from the Abhidhamma Kosha, chapter 5 in Abhidhamma Kosha. And it's a very, very profound and deep and very elaborated teachings. Maybe one day we'll teach that. That's one of my favorite subjects. I dived into it a very long time ago, and I taught it many times. But it's some kind of complicated. I'm not sure I will be able to do it in English, but maybe. I don't know. I taught it in Hebrew. But look at it from this point of view. I mean, do we know what are the circumstances that brings us something that we don't know that will be our best solution for the next life or for next development on the path? But we don't know that. So I wanted to share that with you. I know this is, some kind of a detour from our subject, or maybe not. Maybe this is not such a detour, right? So if I want just to summarize that, so listen to your heart and try to practice Tantra. And practicing Tantra is not just saying the words. It's trying to see everything as a divine plan. Because then, if you are the deity, and remember, we're trying to become the deity, it doesn't mean externally, it means the characteristic of the deities, right? If you are becoming the deity, you're Buddha. And Buddha, everything is perfect. Everything is divine in the world of the Buddha, in the mandala of the Buddha, right? So it's always a good reminder to remind us and Tantrika what is going on in our mundane mind and what's happening in the future for our life. And I just remembered that I didn't start with the lineage prayer, but maybe that was the lineage prayer. There is a different kind of lineage prayer. If you feel connected to your teachers, you don't have to use so many words. The refuge, the bodhicitta, the love that you have for your teachers. If you are connected to that, you did the lineage prayer. It doesn't have to be ceremonial, okay? I love ceremonies. All my friends are always laughing at me because I'm the first one to go when there is a fire puja or whatever, because I like that. I just had a question from one of our friends. He said about the tormas. He wanted to know about the tormas. And I started to record an answer to him. And then I said, well, I have so much to say about tormas. I love tormas. Not everybody likes to do torma. I have another friend here who just mentioned to me on Saturday how she hated to do the tormas. And I love to do it. traumas are amazing if you know what is behind the dough that you're doing, whatever. So ceremonies are not external. Ceremonies are always something which is internal. So we just did the lineage prayer, the refuge, and the bodhicitta at that moment, okay? So we'll start with our class. That's funny. And as you remember, we were going through some kind of a history of the Tantra. And then last week we spoke about the motivation. I hope that you had the chance to go over the question that we brought up about what is the motivation? What is your motivation? Because everybody here has a different motivation, which is perfect. Okay, we don't need to have the same motivation. But what I want to give you now, it's a brief, very briefly, what is I will say the different kind of Tantra that we have. Usually when people are coming up to the Zoom with Lamalina, so, and they're asking her what deity should I use, or they're asking her about the practice of the deity that they were doing. And she always says to them, which Tantra are you practicing? And people usually answers with the deity. And then she said, okay, but which Tantra are you practicing? And usually people do not know how to answer this question. And I want to give you some information about that because I want you to know what you're practicing. If you're practicing Tantra, there are some kind of Tantra has been divided into 4 classes, I will say, okay? I'll just go for it briefly over that and maybe to give you some kind of a test. What does it mean? So we have the Kriya Tantra. Maybe you heard about it. Kriya Tantra, Charya Tantra, Yoga Tantra, and Anuttara Yoga Tantra. Okay, those are the 4 classes. So people are asking me, what is the difference between those 4? How do you know which one? How do you know which one you practice? Because sometimes we can have the same deity. Like, for example, we can have I will not call, maybe I'll call it, let's say, Vajrasattva, okay? Vajrasattva can be either Kriya or Yoga Tantra or Anuttara Yoga Tantra, usually not Charya Tantra. So what is the difference between them? Mainly, it's not about the look of the deity, okay? It's not about that. It's about the instructions that you have received within the specific form of the initiation or empowerment that you have received. Well, so how do you differentiate between those classes? Okay, so the first criteria I will say maybe criteria is what is the level of understanding of the emptiness, what we call sometimes shunyata, or in different languages it's called different, lactong sometimes. So emptiness, the level of understanding of emptiness is different in each one of the classes. For example, in Kriya Tantra mainly focus on rituals. Okay? It doesn't mean that other tantras don't have ceremonies and rituals, but this Kriya Tantra specific emphasizing rituals. Okay? So what is the level of understanding of emptiness? If I'm practicing something which is external to me, I'm doing a ceremony or ritual with something which is external, the level of understanding of emptiness is different from, let's say, Anuttara Yoga Tantra, that the emphasis on integrated or yab-yub integration and focusing on more of the channels and the bindus and the prana within the body. So as you can see, ritual is something externally, and Vajrabadi or whatever is within the Vajrabadi is something which is internally. So you already know that there is a difference. So the level of understanding of emptiness has a very important role here. Or there is another way of doing that. Always the analogy of bliss. Like, for example, if you were 16 years old and you were falling in love in one of your friends in class, and then you just picked on them, right? And when you had this, you looked at them and you felt, strong feeling in your body, level of bliss because you fall in love, But what happened when you started to engage? Maybe you were touching, maybe you were holding hands. So that's a different level of bliss. And then what happens if you start maybe, I don't know, kissing? So this is a different level of bliss. And then comes the engagement with the full sex union. And this is a different level of bliss. So many times, the different classes of Tantra, the explanation goes with the level of bliss. So if you're doing Kriya Tantra, the bliss of the partner is like looking at each other. If you're doing Charya Tantra, it's like smiling at each other, starting to hold hands. If it's Yoga Tantra, is hugging and kissing. And if it's Anuttara Yoga Tantra, it's the bliss of the being in union. So it's a different level of bliss. So there was a different level of understanding of emptiness. There was a different level of bliss. And there is another criteria to understand the different classes of Tantra, which is the level of external or internal practices. Kriya Tantra and Charya Tantra are always external practices. Yoga Tantra and Anuttara Yoga Tantra are internal practices, but in Anuttara Yoga Tantra, it's a special internal practices, which is different, what we call the completion stages. Completion stages practices are only part of Anuttara Yoga Tantra. They are not part of Yoga Tantra, okay? So I want you to know that. There are also some distinguished features that goes with each one of the tantras. So I guess that you already know part of you, if you are practicing something and you didn't know if it's Anuttara Yoga Tantra or Yoga Tantra or Kriya Tantra. So I want to give you some more information for that, okay? Kriya Tantra, for example, it's not just emphasizing the ritual, it's also some kind of always keeping something very clean. For example, being very strict vegetarian or being very strict with not eating dark foods. I don't know if you're familiar with the dark foods. Dark foods are, for example, is onion, garlic, radish, meat, wine. Maybe there are more that I don't remember now. So a lot of washing rituals. You can see that when you go into India, for example, and you go to the Ganges, and you see a lot of ceremonies that has to do with the fire and washing and everything. That's Kriya Tantra, okay? And also they're working on gaining shamatha. I mean, shamatha meaning the 1 point concentration in a very specific ways, focusing on visualization and on the sound of the mantra. They are receiving mantras as well, but the mantra is never being spoken out. It's always resounding in the heart. So if you have received some kind of those instructions from your teacher that gave you some kind of yidam, so you know that's how it goes. And the yidams that goes with the Kriya Tantras are usually white Tara. That's for an answer for somebody who asked me that last week about the white Tara. White Tara usually goes with Kriya Tantra. There is no white Tara in Yoga Tantra or Anuttara Yoga Tantra. Medicine Buddha, it's also Kriya Tantra. Amitais for long life. It's always Kriya Tantra. Chen Rezik. Many people are asking Lama Lina what to practice, and she sent you to Chen Rezik, the one that she is giving from Lama Yeshe, and it's on her website. Have a look at Tashvara or Chen Rezik. It's usually helping to strengthen the compassion, and without compassion, you cannot progress into Yoga Tantra or Anuttara Yoga Tantra. Compassion is something very important. So we use Chen Rezik practices in Kriya Tantra in order to develop the compassion. Also Manjushri. Manjushri, as you know, Manjushri is being used as a deity to clear the mind, to open up for more understanding. People are saying that sometimes it's elevate the intelligence, okay? So that's why we're using Manjushri. Or, for example, Vajrapani. Vajrapani being used for powerful to gain powerful abilities and so on. So those Buddha figures, they're all Buddhas, by the way. Those Buddha figures that I just gave you in examples, they have many forms and can be sometimes even be used in several classes of Tantra, like, for example, as I told you, Vajrasattva, that usually we use that in order to clear, to purify, but also there is a version of this practice in, Vajrasattva in union, which is Yab Yum. It's more of a Yoga Tantra, yes, Yoga Tantra, not Anuttara Yoga Tantra. So that was an example about Kriya Tantra. So what about Charya Tantra? I just want to say something. I'm familiar with Kriya Tantra, with Yoga Tantra, and with Anuttara Yoga Tantra. Personally, I never practiced and never got a lot of teachings about Charya Tantra. So I just give you some kind of brief knowledge from what I know from scriptures and books, but I never practiced that personally. But Charya Tantra is very similar to Kriya, but the most commonly practice of in Charya Tantra is Abhisambodhi or Vairochana. So it's interesting because, again, as I told you, this is emphasizing, again, rituals and external, okay? And the level of understanding emptiness is lower. When I say lower, it doesn't mean low. It's mean lower, okay? Just bear in mind that. So we had some understanding about Kriya Tantra and Charya Tantra. And then now we go to the two higher levels of Tantra. Okay, it doesn't mean, again, that the Kriya Tantra and Charya Tantra are low. It means they are lower than the Yoga Tantra and Anuttara Yoga Tantra. So Yoga Tantra, if Kriya Tantra and Charya Tantra were mainly focusing on rituals, so Yoga Tantra, the emphasis is on mudras, hand gestures, elaborated. We're doing that with a lot of understanding, where there are 4 ways to do gestures. We'll learn that in the future. And if you have practiced, for example, when Lama Lina gave us the teachings about the bardo, all kind of bardos and what's happening within the bardo, after the death bardo, and then before the bardo of becoming, which is the bardo of making the rebirth. So, oh God. We just had an alarm here. So I'm glad that I'm sitting in my shelter room. I don't have to go anywhere, but that's how it goes here. We just had an alarm here. Excuse me for a second. So if you will hear in a few minutes some kind of siren, don't worry. We are all safe here, okay? It's interesting, right, that we have it here. I just want to remember, where was I? Oh, okay. So I was talking about the Yoga Tantra. So Yoga Tantra and Anuttara Yoga Tantra, as I said, they are both the highest practices of Tantra, the higher classes. And I explained to you, for example, that all the teachings and all the rituals and all the practices that we have with regards, for example, to the bardos of how to die and the dying process, it's coming from the Yoga Tantra. So what does it mean? So if I'm practicing the Anuttara Yoga Tantra, I do not practice the death process, of course, because it's embedded in Anuttara Yoga Tantra. But many people are practicing the part of the bardo without doing the emphasis on the practices in Anuttara Yoga Tantra. For example, in the Gelug tradition, many practices comes from Yoga Tantra. Those of you who were participating in the Chöd that was in the last weekend, Chöd is Yoga Tantra. Okay, it's not Anuttara Yoga Tantra. It's Yoga Tantra. For example, if you are participating in Bardo Jangchub ceremonies, it's Yoga Tantra. Okay, although it's ritual, although it's something external, it's still Yoga Tantra because it has a lot of emphasis about how you practice for the dead, how you practice for people who are ill, and stuff like that. And then comes the Anuttara Yoga Tantra. And Anuttara Yoga Tantra, it's the only class of Tantra that works with the subtle energy systems of the body. If you just listen to what I said now about the 3 previous classes, it's a lot of ceremonies, rituals, a lot of strong doing, very strong doing. You have to do, when you say I'm practicing Kriya Tantra or Charya Tantra or Yoga Tantra, it's a lot of doing. Then there is some kind of phasing, moving into Anuttara Yoga Tantra, and the sadhana that we are receiving in the Anuttara Yoga Tantra, after having the empowerment, the initiation, and the lung and everything, it's some kind of transition phase that you are still in the doing. When you're doing the sadhana and you're doing the mantra, you're still in the doing. But most of the deities and most of the sadhanas in Anuttara Yoga Tantra is within the sadhana, there is an open up to the working with the subtle energy system of the body, which is the chakras, the channels, the winds, or prana, sometimes it's called. So this is the only class of Tantra that makes an access and deals with, for example, the clear light, okay? Clear light level of mind cannot be happening externally. It has to be internal. So it's clear light. And also, for example, somebody was asking Lamalina in the other day in the Q&A session that she did, she mentioned something about the rainbow body. If you want to achieve rainbow body, you have to practice Anuttara Yoga Tantra. If you want to achieve clear light, you have to practice Anuttara Yoga Tantra. Of course, if you're a Chikchawa and you can do that with Dzogchen, that's fine. For example, Dream Yoga, it's part of Anuttara Yoga Tantra. Okay, because it's working, it doesn't work with the body, it's working with a different level of mind. Okay, you know that in the dream you don't have your flesh and blood body, right? So so I hope it's much more understandable now what are the different level, because when we understand that, it doesn't mean sometimes I'm practicing Kriya Tantra. I love, as I told you, I love ceremonies and I love rituals and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that I'm not gonna be on the path to enlightenment. So don't judge yourself. So if you like, for example, somebody asked me last time about White Tower. If you like this part, this ritual, and you like to do that, and you like the deity, and you love the sadhana, and you're feeling good with it, as Lamalina always says, do what you like. Don't go, I don't know, with the mantaka if you don't like this one, although it's the Anotara Yoga Tantra, because you will not practice that. You will not do that. So if you have any questions now, maybe you're not sure what kind, I hope that now you know if you are practicing a specific deity. So now you know what you're practicing with terms of not only what is the deity that you're practicing, but also in which level, in which class are you practicing, okay? So if you have any questions, so please. No questions, everything is so clear.
I would like to ask something.
Yes.
I should raise my hand. I'm sorry.
Yes, I don't. Oh, okay, Angelique. Okay, I can see you now. Yes.
How does Guru Yoga fit in this?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, actually, some practices are all over. I mean, they are cross-board, what we call, okay? All the classes have them, but in a different way. For example, if you do Kriya Yoga, if you practice Kriya Yoga and you do Guru Yoga, so then it's come with a lot of ritual that has to do with coming to the teachers and doing some bowing and giving a lot of objects and serving and a lot of emphasis about that's come from the Indian lineage, but it's embedded in the Buddhism, which is, for example, sometimes it's funny. For example, not to step on the guru's shadow. Okay, if you that means that you have to go behind them and you cannot walk around them. And when you talk to them, you always, ask their permission. And I saw many people who are practicing that with regard to guru yoga, and it's creates some kind of the respect for the teacher might, I'm not saying that everybody goes there, might be developed also as some kind of a fear. So this is some kind of, oh, my guru is here. Oh my God, some kind of shaking fear because this is something, and some people call this guru yoga. I'm not criticizing that path. What I'm trying to say that if we understand different levels of guru yoga, for example, and then you understand that you use your guru, you're using the person that is there, you're using them. I like this word, using them. We are using them in order for what? In order to get enlightened. So who is the one who is going to get enlightened? It's me. So who is at the end of the day is the guru of the enlightened Buddha? Who is the enlightened guru of the enlightened Buddha? If you're enlightened, who is your guru? You're the guru. So this is a different level of understanding. The internal guru is something totally different than the external guru. And what fear, respect I can understand, but what fear has to do with guru yoga? That cannot happen. I mean, I'm sorry. If you have a fear from something or somebody, what happens? You have some kind of a rejection because we don't like to be afraid of anything, right? So you have kind of rejection. But for some people, that's the way they practice guru yoga. And I respect that. I respect their path because that's what is the best way for them. Now, if we are looking at different kind of gurus, we have the external guru, we have the internal guru, and we have the secret guru, right? Each one of them is different. Mainly, when you go into Kriya and Charya Tantra, it's the external guru. When you go into Yoga Tantra, and sometimes in Anuttara Yoga, it's the internal guru. And then when you work really hard with the subtle energies, you find the secret guru. It's not outside. So that's Guru Yoga, truly meaning of Guru Yoga. So I hope I answered your question. Corey, you were asking a question. I mean, I can't see you, I
Yeah,
can see your hand.
yeah. My video is acting funny again.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for inviting me to that Chud empowerment. Uh, Lama Lena, over about a year and a half ago, recommended Chud for me. Um, and I just wanted to say thank you because now the time has finally come to make that one of my daily practices. So, that and I have a form of Anu that I do every day too. So I'm definitely very grateful and fortunate, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, I'm amazed with that, and I think that if you heard those teachings from Drupanla, so you also heard that in the Chicago Reference Shri Center, CRSS, I think they call themselves. So they have an ongoing practices with the church, so you can join them.
Yeah, yeah. I will definitely try to do that in the future.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
okay, great. Laurel, I think you are now. Laurel, did I pronounce it
Laurel.
right? Laurel. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, like did you ever watch Laurel and Hardy
No, I'm
shorts?
sorry. No.
Oh,
I guess
okay.
it's an American.
It is. The ones who are smiling know what I'm talking about. Okay, that's how you pronounce it.
Okay.
So I'm in this class because I'm trying to understand better the difference between Tantra and Dzogchen, because I have a Gelukpa background, but these two are, well, Tantra, I know, I guess I studied it slightly, but I don't understand why you have to first objectify something that's a quality or an archetype in you externally into a deity, because then that sort of, for me, sets up this subject object situation where it seems, that's what you're supposed to get beyond. And I'm just trying to understand really the difference between the two, because I need to narrow down and focus more on
I'll tell you what Lamalina is always saying. She always goes with how her teacher was giving the teachings. He said, you don't have to go linear, okay? You don't have to start, from somewhere, and then to go to the pinnacle, which is Dzogchen is the pinnacle, okay? He always started with the pointing out. He gave the pointing out, the Dzogchen pointing out. And he said, if you catch it, if you have the ability to practice Dzogchen, go for it. You got it. But for most people, they can't get it. So go to Tantra. So then try to practice Tantra. If you get it, go for that, because it will bring you to enlightenment in one lifetime. Dzogchen will bring you to enlightenment at the first moment that you catch it, okay? At that moment. Tantra will take you to enlightenment in one lifetime. And then if you don't catch it, go back. Go to what we call Mahayana practices, which is the 6 parameters and others, okay? And if you don't catch that, go back, go to Sutrayana, go to the 4 thoughts that turns the mind, okay? But Yeah, especially in the Gaelic tradition, if you have a background in the Gaelic tradition, so you know that we start, the Gaelic tradition, usually they start with the four thoughts that turn on the mind, and then they go, like with the Sutrayana, and then they go to Mahayana, and then they go to the Lamrim, and then they go to Tantra, lower Tantra, and then they go to higher Tantras, and only then they go to the completion stages of Tantra. And then for those who are so special, that have special abilities, they go either Mahamudra or Dzogchen, which is bring you to the same place, but the different methods. So if you can practice Dzogchen, there is no question. No question. You can practice that right away. What we do, those of us who have not been able to become Chikchawa when we got the pointing out from the teacher. So what we do, we practice both. So we practice the Tantra, and within the Tantra, there is a place, especially in Anuttara Yoga Tantra, within the sadhana, there is a place where you're dissolving the world around you into the syllable, and then you're dissolving the syllable. I'm not going to go into details now. And then you go to, hopefully, to clear light. Okay. Then you stay in the trekcha, if you're able to do the trekcha. And if even for 1 minute, even for half the 30 seconds. But if you're not able, so continue to practice the Tantra, eventually go into all those practices of the completion stages. They have a goal that they're aiming at being able to hold a perspective of fracture or Laktong in the Mahamudra path, okay? So when you want to get into the room, one can get from the window, one can get from the basement, one can get from the door, one can get from the roof, different methods, but you're gonna be in the same room. So choose the one that works for you.
Well, I have had pointing out several times, but I'm unable to do those quick glances. So Lama Lena put me in her Mahamudra group. So I'm sort of starting from there. So that still kind of leaves my options open, since I'm not sure.
Don't be discouraged. Continue. You know, I always told my students, you know, when Lama Lena started to give the pointing out, I'm not sure if it was six or seven times before I wouldn't say got it, but I don't know, something happens, okay?
Sure.
Don't be discouraged. Continue practice. Continue do whatever you're doing, because you're doing great. Because even if you have this question, it means that you give it a thought and you're practicing something. And if we don't practice, well, we'll not gain anything. So I'm very happy that you're practicing. Whatever you do, it's okay. Don't judge yourself that you are not in this class. And that's why that's why I told you, although the classes are described as lower tantras and higher tantras, I don't like this phrase. This is how they call it in the scriptures. I don't like it because I don't think it's low. Low is something which is, first of all, it's relative, which I don't like relative things, you know, and because I'm myself practicing something, I'm taking from my toolbox everything that it fits my situation at that moment. So don't be discouraged about that, okay? Okay, Oksana. Oksana? I can't hear you. You muted yourself. Okay.
Слышно? Слышно меня, нет?
Okay, so
А,
Ola, are you translating?
добрый день, добрый
Okay.
вечер, утро.
Thank you.
Знаете, мне повезло то, что я начинала практику с познания пустотности, да, поэтому, извините, у меня вот я занимаюсь сексом со всеми божествами. Как бы так, да, потому что, в принципе, у меня просто мне повезло с рождения очень точка сборки двигающаяся, да, очень, то есть я могу туда-сюда очень легко переходить. Вот, поэтому не знаю, нужно ли это деление, да, потому что как бы это же действительно инструменты просто и все, потому что в то же самое время, да, я до этого занималась не буддизмом, а философией, вот, много изучала, вот, и в те же ритуалы в них вшиты некоторые действия, например, там гурджиевские движения и все такое прочее, которые также человека через ритуал вводит в состояние
Yeah.
пустотности, да, то есть человек просто делает определенные там движения, да, вот эти вот там барабан там на 2, при этом счет на 3, омахум говорит, он тут же все равно входит в состояние пустотности, да, то есть я считаю, что просто это, наверное, но это мой подход, да, мое понимание, что просто разные источники передачи были, разные учителя, и вот, а потом уже как бы люди это разделили, потому что так удобнее. Вот, потому что как бы должны же они, те, кто не совсем понимают, что такое оргазм от, извините, от общения с божеством, да, это же не все чувствуют, да, в основном это чувствуют женщины. Мужчинам здесь сложнее. Вот, а у меня это сразу, то есть я могу начитывать мантру и сразу же туда вхожу. Вот, и это мешает, я пыталась в течение долгого времени от этого избавиться, потому что это мешает дальнейшему продвижению. Вот, как-то так, наверное, да. По поводу войны, вы знаете, я не сторонник военных действий, но в то же самое время я понимаю, да, внутри себя, что у нас все, чтобы получился сильный плюс, надо, чтобы был сильный минус. Вот, то есть плюс отдельно он никогда не возникнет, да, потому что это у нас идет через разделение, да, например, если это мерить там в
But
единицах.
I want to stop you for a second, Oksana. I understand. I appreciate very much the way you understand. But since we are short in time, I want to ask is there a question that you want to do? Because I like the sharing that you're doing, but I want to see if there is a question there.
Тогда я уже все, извините, да, наверное, это было
Okay.
просто поделиться,
So I think that
потому что вопрос...
yeah, I think that the sharing, I think that the most important thing that you did, it's like the understanding that everything leads to the emptiness. And this is very important. I told you that I like all kind of stuff. For example, I'm doing the Vajra dance with in the Dzogchen community of Namkhai Norber Rinpoche. It's a dancing, okay? You can call it Charya Tantra or Kriya Tantra, right? It's a ritual, it's a dancing. But it's all about the mind that you are moving your body there, okay? So, yeah, that's great. Tatiana, we'll go, I don't know, we have 2 more people, so we'll go short because I don't want to hold you. And if you have to leave,
It's
so
a short
please
question.
do, okay? No, okay.
Yes, thank you. My question is, what's the difference between Yabiyam practice and normal deity? I've been reading about Vajrasattva practice. I just wanted to understand the difference between.
Okay, so Yab-Yum, actually it's female and male. Okay, that's in,
Yes.
okay. So as I told you, the different understanding of bliss, do you remember the different classes understanding of bliss? One look at each other, the one holds hand, one kisses, and then the union. When you say Yab-Yum, that's a practice that's the deity is in union. I'll give you an example. I have it here on my desk. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. Can you just see that? Okay, this is Vajrasattva. Usually Vajrasattva, you see it alone, but what you see it here, it's Vajrasattva Yab-Yum. When you have Yab Yum, you understand that you're working with the subtle energies because that goes with the level of bliss, which is high. So the sadhana, the practice, the mantra will be the same, okay? The 100 syllable, but the sadhana and the visualization and working with the subtle energies will be different because you're working in Yab Yum. In the completion stages practices, okay, there are what we call sometimes 6 yogas of Naropas. We have practice. Not everybody practice that, okay? Don't be discouraged about that. But there is a practice that you work together in Yab Yum, in union with a concert, and then you work with the subtle energies. It's not about how people are doing sex, okay? It's not anything to do with sex. But you work with the subtle energy with a partner. You do a ride on the sexual energy, but it's not sex, okay? Because the sexual energy, as you know, it's very strong. So that's Yab Yum, okay? I hope I answered your questions, but yeah, there is a lot of about to say about the Yab Yum, but in general, that's what it is. Anisha, it's now you.
Thank you so much, Dorothea. I'm really enjoying your class. Just quick question. You don't have to answer now. You can also maybe talk next week if that's more appropriate. If you could say a little bit about how we could use Guru Yoga to kind of rest in nature of mind. I'm doing Mahamudra. And, you said the teacher is still, you can use the teacher as a gateway to do that, the form, physical, like appearance form of them. I just wondered if you could share a little bit about kind of that journey from just the ritualistic approach to the mixing of minds and resting in finally, and if that's the inner or secret.
So as I said before, the path that you start with an external person, okay? Because even if this person is a Buddha, we need them to be, let's say, in a normal form, otherwise we will not be able to understand them, right? Because if they will come, I don't know, in a form of light or of sudden, and they will not speak in the language that I understand, I don't think that something will be open up unless I'm already a Buddha, so I can capture the Sambhogakaya form, okay, and receive the teaching there. There are practitioners that are practicing, and you hear a lot of stories about this, mainly the Mahasiddhas, that can receive teachings from different forms in a different language. For example, Teratons, as you know, they're receiving teachings and they're revealing some kind of treasures. But we have to start somewhere, okay? We have to start. It's like you cannot be born unless you've been born in the, unfortunately, in hell or in the pure land. You have to have a father and a mother. Otherwise, you will not be able to be born unless you're, I don't know, a bird and you have been born in an egg, okay? But unless those are there. So you have to have a person. Now you start to develop a relationship with this person. Any kind of relationship. It can be, as I told you before, fear, because you feel the respect within, you feel the fear in the respect manner, okay? Or you can feel like falling in love, okay? Falling in love. Now, what happens if this person is not in the room, but you remember them? What do you have now? You have either the fear or the love. It depends on the relationship that you have with them. But what happens now is you have some kind of emotion, feelings. It's not about the person that it's in the room. When we put the picture of the guru in front of us, actually, if you don't need this picture in order to open up your heart to this feeling of respect, either fear or respect, what I call respect, okay, or love. And I'm using them because what happens, it's that when my heart is open up with love, guess what happens? You know, well, I'm sharing with you all my desk, you know, everything that's in my desk. I'll show you again. I have a specific picture here. Whenever I look at it, it opens my heart. Now, what is the reason? Why do I want to open my heart? Because when I open my heart, there is a love and there is a compassion. And when there is love and compassion, there is no hatred and no anger and no, I don't know, jealousy and all those mental activities that we have in our mind. And we want this love. Love is also a mental activity, but it opens the heart. When you open the heart, you're more receptive in order to receive the teachings and to develop the practices and develop realization and everything. So I want to share with you the picture that I'm using to open my heart, okay? I don't know if you can see that. Do you see that? I don't know. Can you see that? So that's my oldest grandchild. When he was very little, as you can see, I think it was, I don't know, a week or something, I held him on my shoulder. And I remember the feeling that I had. It was like burst in love that I never had before, never. And I have three amazing daughters, and I have my best friend is my husband, and I love many people, but I never had this kind of a feeling. So I use that in order to see that, and in a minute, I can be in this feeling. And that's how we use our teachers. If you are developing some kind of relationship with the teacher, which I hope you do. I wish every one of you to develop this kind of relationship with the teacher. That's why, by the way, they call heart teachers. Do you understand that? Heart teachers, it's something that opens your heart. And when your heart is open, the path to enlightenment is very short. And that's how we use Guru Yoga. That's the purpose of the Guru Yoga. Guru Yoga is not about admiring somebody outside, giving them a lot of money, giving them, and a true guru wouldn't mind about those things. So that's also some kind of, I will say, some kind of a test that you want to test your guru. Okay? So, of course, I can talk eons about Guru Yoga because there are so many levels of Guru Yoga.
Yeah, maybe as appropriate during our classes, because I feel like there's different levels. I mean, there's difference between Guru Yoga with your grandson and Guru Yoga with, for example, Amalina is one of those people. When I just think of her, my heart opens.
Is there a difference?
Technically not, but where I am as a sentient being,
Fine, maybe you can do it with your
bodhicitta
dog.
is a very
Maybe you have a
attractive.
dog. Maybe you have a cat. The purpose of Guru Yoga is to open your heart. If your teacher is opening your heart, go for it. But why wouldn't I use? I mean, for me, he is the way the feeling that I mean, it's not him. Again, remember, I'm using this picture in order to feel the open-hearted. I'm not using him, really him, okay? This is picture. He's now 7.5 years old. He's not 1 week old, okay? But still, when I see this picture, I use this feeling I use this picture in order to open my heart. And when my heart is open, I feel the love and the compassion. By the way, The sadhana that Lama Lina does with Chen Razik, I hope that you all know that. It's the same thing, by the way. She never said there, remember your teacher as a Guru Yoga. She always say, try to remember. Do you remember the stages? The stages are that. And one stage is try to remember something or somebody. Maybe it was a kitten, maybe it was a doggy, maybe it was a person, maybe it was a baby. Something that opened your heart. Because when your heart is open, and that's the purpose of the Chen Razik sadhana. That's the purpose, to develop the open-hearted love. That's how we use different tools. And I'm using this picture as a tool, and I'm using Lama Lina as a tool in open my heart, because I love her. But I had a teacher that my emotions towards him or her, never mind, were different from a perspective of the love, okay? So I'm using her. I'm not using him or the other one. I'm not for open my heart. But I do have a lot of respect for the other teacher as well. But again, I told you, I'm using my teachers. And my teachers, if they're genuine, they're love to be used. Do you understand? I'm not using them in the mundane world, okay? I'm using them in my practice, and Guru Yoga is using the teacher in the practice in order to gain realizations. Okay?
Thank you.
Again, there is a lot to say about Guru Yoga, and you can see, again, this is one of my favorite subjects. But, you know, it's kind of boring now. Everything is one of my favorite subjects, so I don't know. I do love Tantra, and I do love to practice that, and I do love the level of understanding that comes from the practice, okay? But you have to practice in order to gain this level of understanding. So let's say thank you so much for your patience, and again, we hope that next week we will not have the obstacle of the Zoom again. Thank you so much. So just let's dedicate that. Ngevadihe nyadudam chechi salam gopasho. May all be happy. And may we open our heart, and we will be able to see the divine plan. And in order for us to see and to open our heart to every living being.